Welcome to our first show of Our View on Public Safety. On this show, we're going to talk about various topics regarding public safety, certain things that we all should be aware of. My name is Richard Aguiar. I am the Emergency Management Director for the City of Fall River, and I am the Deputy Chief of Special Services, which is a volunteer group. We do rehab and lighting, which further show that we'll get into that. But today we have two firefighters, two fire inspectors, Jeff Medeiros and Clayton Walker, and today they're going to speak regarding fireworks safety, procedures, what to do, what not to do. They're the experts, so I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and Clayton.
Thank you, Rick. So we're at that time of year where we have the fireworks. First thing I want to mention to the public is fireworks in the state of Massachusetts are illegal to have and to use. I know surrounding communities to us, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, they're legal for sale, but in Massachusetts they are not. So if you're caught with fireworks in the state of Mass, they can be confiscated and you can be fined. So please, leave the fireworks to the professionals. That being said, I'm going to take you through what it takes to put on the show in Fall River. So usually in May, we'll receive the permit package, and we will then begin to go through it because there are multiple permits that are needed. You need to have the permit from the shooter, his license, the permit to transport. You need to make sure that all their firing boards have been certified through the State Fire Marshal's office. Then you also need the permit itself and the count as to what the city or town has purchased. This way, come the day of the shoot, you can go through an inventory to make sure that the city ended up receiving what they paid for. So that's basically the paperwork aspect. And where we shoot a barge shoot in Fall River, we need it signed by the chief of the Fall River Fire Department and also the chief of Somerset. Once we receive that, we forward that back up to the state, so that takes care of the paperwork aspect of things. Then from there comes the day of the shoot. When we receive the fireworks into the city, from that point on, those fireworks always have to be attended by somebody from the fire department, one of the fire inspectors. Now, Clayton, in the past, he takes care of that first shift for us, which is the inventory portion. So go ahead, Clayton.
Yeah, I was amazed at the detail that we have to go through. I've learned from Jeff that once the fireworks arrive, we have to do a count, so that the city is, gets what they actually paid for. We have to take names and numbers. God forbid something goes wrong on the shoot. Like Jeff said, I can't leave that property until I'm relieved by Jeff at night, because you never want to have any of the fireworks unattended or have somebody come through and, toss a cigarette or anything like that. So we have to keep a boundary of where we keep the fireworks. I was on the shoot the first year. I've only been doing this 3 years from Jeff. Jeff's the expert, but I was, again, astonished by how loud those fireworks actually are. And I was actually on the barge the night of the fireworks. And I'll tell you, it was like I was under mortar fire. Really, it was that. I couldn't believe what those guys go through on that barge to give us a great show in Fall River.
I remember one year, Club Street,
Yep.
15, 20 years maybe now, they put the charge in upside down.
Yep.
Oh.
And I think Jeff remembers that.
I do.
And they blew up in the ground rather than up. That was quite a disaster. So you're talking about keeping an eye on things. Can you talk about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I can. An experience I had with a misfire on fireworks was way back when we used to have Fall River Celebrates America. We used to, at one time, we would always incorporate a couple 12-inch shells. And when you're talking about shell size, basically, the larger the shell, the more gunpowder is involved. So you have 3-inch shells, which are smaller. They go off and they look really nice. But a 12-inch shell are the type that really gain over 1,000 feet in height. And we had one that came halfway up out of the tube on the barge and blew up. And it was amazing how much damage that one shell created. So a lot of times, even with shooters nowadays, they've gotten away from hand shoot type shows to where everything now is electrically fired. This way it protects them as well, because if you hand shoot and there's some sort of misfire, shooters have lost their lives through the years.
Back in the day, they used to like those with the flares, right?
The flares,
with the
yeah.
Flares. I remember that. And it's like,
Yeah.
are you people crazy?
Yeah, it was a different world back then. Back then it was still the Wild West when it came
Yeah.
to fireworks. Nowadays it's really so much safer.
Yeah, it's safer.
Yeah, it is, and it's a good thing because it doesn't diminish anything from the show. You're still getting a great show, but now you have the shooter who can stay behind a small enclosure that'll be protected in the event of a misfire, and it doesn't hamper the show at all. You're still getting a great show.
Yeah, last year, the FD was going crazy with the PD, going around 4th of July. Prior to that, everyone was blowing off fireworks
Right.
throughout the city.
Right.
And just go to Tiverton, right, cross the line, you can buy fireworks.
Exactly. 5 minutes away,
Yeah.
you're in Rhode Island. I mean, there are differences between Massachusetts and Rhode Island as far as our fire laws, and it's allowed in Rhode Island where it's not allowed here. And I honestly think that it's for the better that it's not allowed, because even something simple as a sparkler, when you look at the injuries, when sparklers are used, all you need to do is touch yourself with a burning sparkler. Those sparklers burn over 800 degrees, so it doesn't take much. All you need to do is touch it to your skin, especially a young child, and you've got a severe burn.
I have to agree with Jeff. I mean, leave it to the professionals,
Yeah.
because we have responded to fires, whether it be bottle rockets caught in gutters or Roman candles or anything like that. I know I wouldn't want my neighbor firing off fireworks and then all of a sudden my roof's on fire.
Well, I remember back in the day when they used to shoot them off at Kennedy Park, used to get out and three families with gutter fires, but
Right.
back in those days.
Right, right. Actually, the very last show that was shot from Kennedy Park, and I'll never forget this, the captain who, when I started in prevention, was Captain Mark Tibitot. He and we were down there, and there was a misfire of a 3-inch shell, and a small child, probably about 6 years old, found this round, what he thought was a ball, and came carrying it.
Yeah.
And, thank God nothing happened. And the next year, the regulations changed as far as the amount of room you needed as far as for the fallout. So at that point, we needed to change, because there was nowhere in the city of Fall River at that point that we could shoot fireworks then, other than a barge shoot,
Right.
for the diameter fireworks that we were shooting for the shows. And that in itself has made it so much safer.
Yeah, I don't think people know the danger behind even those small little things that can blow your finger off or
Right.
hit your eye. It's
Right.
very, very dangerous.
Even the firecrackers, or even more so the M80s, if that were to go off in your hand, good chance you're losing a finger or two.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so, again, leave the fireworks to the professionals. The one thing I want to say this year, we've got Bicentennial Park and we have Heritage, and there's going to be different events going on throughout the 4th of July day. There's going to be music on both sides of the park. My opinion, Bicentennial Park, probably one of the most beautiful areas in the city of Fall River. When you go down here, look at all the different monuments, the Iwo Jima Memorial, you have the Vietnam Wall, the Gold Star Mothers Memorial, and a number of others. And come down there, enjoy the fireworks. The fireworks are going to go off approximately around 9 o'clock at night. I know they're going to have food trucks down there. So come down there, bring your families, enjoy that. The parks, both of them, are absolutely beautiful, and you'll be on the waterfront. And if you want a different experience, I know the Battleship is selling tickets to go on the Battleship that night to view the fireworks. I've done that years ago when my son was young. He wanted to do that, so we did that. But that whole waterfront area is a beautiful place to watch the fireworks.
Talking about the Battleship, I do know when they're going to shoot off the guns, you have to have a firefighter on the boat. What is that? Why does that have to happen?
That has to happen because when you look at the black powder permit, first of all, the person that shoots the cannon is licensed through the State Fire Marshal's office in order to perform that. And the fire watch, if you will, one of the fire inspectors is there because anytime there's black powder out, you always have that inherent risk. If there's a spark or something, something could happen. So we're there to make sure all the safety precautions are in place. And also, if there is an incident, there's no delay in calling for help.
Oh, good.
Yep, yep. So that's really, matter of fact, Memorial Day just went by. I happen to be down there for that.
No, it's...
And so that's always a really good thing. And there are different times throughout the year that the battleship, the 9/11 ceremony, as
yep.
you know, they also fire the cannons for that. And I was on the ship side, but talking to the people after the show, they said the Memorial Day celebration was a really nice celebration, which was right near the carousel this year. So, really good time.
We're going to shift gears now to fire safety, fire prevention, stuff like that. Outside burning, chimeneas and all that, we get a lot of calls for illegal burning.
Yes.
What is the actual law about having an outside fire pit, outside fireplace? And it seems like a lot of people are using those now, particularly in the evenings. So what's the actual law on that?
Clay, you want to take this one?
Oh, well, I mean,
All right.
I don't have the experience that you
Okay,
do.
so in the state of Massachusetts, there are certain communities that are in no open burning. Majority of them are all cities. Fall River happens to be one of those cities. There is no open burning, so there is no burning of leaves, things such as that. Now, the law itself is extremely vague. It falls into this gray. I wish I could say it's black and white, but it's not. So if you have a chimney or if you have a fire pit and you use it to cook on, that's allowed. If that fire becomes what is termed to be a nuisance fire, meaning the smoke is blowing onto your neighbor's yard, they have their windows open, then that could be determined to be a nuisance fire. And at that point, people should call 911. One of the engines will go out there to investigate. And if the officer deems it to be a nuisance fire, the individual has to put it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, a little bit of cleaning up of that law would be great at the state level, because a lot of times, and we've seen it over the past couple of years, where sometimes maybe it is, maybe it isn't a nuisance fire, but you might have one neighbor not liking another neighbor, and now it becomes a neighbor dispute. So if it were black and white, it would make it easier, but for all the years that I've been here, which makes 22 now in prevention, that law has remained the same. So each case is taken on an individual basis.
How about, let's talk about extension cords in houses. We know that creates a lot of fires.
Right.
They can get pinched.
Right.
So what is your take on that, the both of you, about what would you recommend people not to do or to do?
Not to run them under carpeting. You certainly, as far as plugging in things, you don't want to have multiple items plugged into a unit and overload the unit. That's.
If you have anything with a high draw, like an air conditioner, or if you're using a space heater, you should plug that directly into an outlet, because extension cords are not made for that, for the high draw. The other thing is to remember is with extension cords, you have electric going through. As that electric current is going through, it's creating heat. So if, like Clayton had mentioned, don't ever put it under a carpet, and don't pinch it in between a door, like close the door on it, because now you're adding more restriction, which is going to create even more heat, which those are the cases a lot of times that you'll see the electrical fires happen.
Right, and I think even the strip cords, they can be pretty dangerous if you don't have them properly plugged into the wall. So those.
True. And then another thing that you see sometimes, especially around Christmas, you'll see people overloading the outlets with those three-way plugs.
Yeah.
You'll see people put in multiple three-way plugs and then plug other high watt devices into them. I've been in different places where you actually go to touch it and you would burn yourself almost because it was so hot, because those devices are not rated for the amount of load that you're putting on them. So again, you know, whenever you're using an extension, or you're better off with one of those type of bars that has the circuit breaker on it and plug into that. But if you are using a high watt device, such as an air conditioner, especially this time of year, plug it directly into the outlet. Don't use an extension cord.
Back in the day, we had a lot of kitchen fires. Result of grease on top of stoves, French fries, that's the old classic, right?
Yep, yep.
So let's talk about that. What if that should happen? What's the procedure people should follow? I think people do know, but from you guys, what would you
Well,
recommend?
definitely not leaving the kitchen
Right.
is probably the biggest thing. If you're there and you see a problem, you're going to act on the problem. With that being said, you should also have things like fire extinguishers handy. If you have a grease fire, never ever throw water on it. You would want to shut the burner and cover the fire to extinguish it. But not leaving the kitchen is probably the biggest thing that we see. Other little safety habits, I mean, if you have a little one at home, you know, we talk about when we do the safe trailer training, we actually talk about not leaving the pot handle facing out. So if a child's looking up and they reach for that pot handle and it's boiling water, all that water is going to come down on them. So that's I've been to a lot of incidents. We'll call them incidents. As far as in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think the other crazy thing people do is they have their gas grill on their wooden deck.
Right.
Particularly in 3 families or whatever.
Right.
And that's not good, right? Let's
No,
talk about that.
it's not good, and it's actually illegal. Whenever you're going to use LPG, it has to be at the ground level, and it has to be a safe distance away from the house. Cooking fires still account in the United States are still the second leading cause of fire. Unfortunately, smoking last year jumped to be the careless smoking, I should say, has come to the first place position again. But as far as cooking and grills, here's what happens, and here's the whole basis for why a grill needs to be on ground level and away from the house. A lot of people have not seen what happens if one of those tanks, they don't explode in a fire. What will happen is they'll heat up to the point where the emergency release valve would blow off. When that happens, that actually turns into what you can picture as a flamethrower. And so now just picture a flamethrower being on an above level where at that point you're not going to be able to move it away from the house. So now you have this massive amount of flame hitting the house, and what's going to happen? Obviously the house is going to catch fire. And so that's the whole basis and reasoning that it's not allowed, because in the event of a fire, if it's on an above ground level, you're trapped. And if it's on the ground level and away from the house, you've got that safe distance that even if that does happen, you're okay.
The other thing that I just want to touch on, I think in the back of all our minds, is with the increase in all the fuel prices. This coming winter, electric space heaters,
Right.
electrical heaters. Let's talk about that, about the safety of that, because I think, you know, in the past we've had fires regarding those
Right.
space heaters, electric heaters. So can we
Right.
talk about that a little bit?
We can.
Yeah. Not really the time of year to talk about the space heaters, but absolutely, we've had quite a few fires caused by them. You want to make sure that there's at least a 3-foot radius from where the space heater is. What the misconception is that to cause a fire, it needs to actually be touching something that will cause a fire. That's not the case. You can have radiant heat that if a piece of paper is near that space heater and it's less than 3 feet, the paper could catch fire without actually touching the space heater. Another big thing is that the space heater should be on something solid. It shouldn't be balanced somewhere where it could tip over or something could knock it over. And you certainly don't want anything combustible. Like, I would never put the space heater on a piece of paper, like newspaper, and have it working. We have seen quite a few, we'll call them incidents. At Fall River for space heaters.
How about kerosene heaters? That's not advisable to have in a house either.
They're illegal in the state of Massachusetts, and the reason that they're illegal is because of the amount of carbon monoxide that they give off. So again, I know in other states surrounding us, it's allowed, but in the state of Massachusetts, kerosene heaters are not allowed.
Right.
One other thing that I want to mention, just because it's that time of year and that we see it on a regular basis, air conditioners, people using air conditioners and putting them in a window where they have their fire escape. You know, a lot of times when there's a fire, people think they have a lot of time to evacuate, and you don't, because a lot of times those fires are happening in the middle of the night. You wake up to the sound of smoke detectors going off. There's already smoke within the apartment, and it's going to be it's an event that you're going to be scared to begin with, and you really don't have as much time to evacuate as what you think. And in the event of a true fire that's progressing rapidly, you're not going to have the time to unplug your air conditioner out of that window, take it out, and then evacuate. So I get we all want to be cool, but choose another window. Please do not put it within your fire escape window.
Talking about a second place of egress, how about when people have 3 families and they use their back stairway for storage and they can't get out?
Yes,
So they
same.
only have one way out
Way out.
rather than
Same
that way.
incident.
Right.
So
Same
that's a
thing.
problem as well.
It is, and you know, Clayton can attest to this as well as everybody within fire prevention. We have numerous complaints. That's one of the things that we do. We respond to complaints within the city, and that's one of the more frequent complaints that we respond to, people using their hallways as storage areas. So again, if we respond to something like that, we will make you remove whatever you have in that hallway, because again, you got to think worst case scenario, middle of the night. If it's an electrical fire, you've lost power within that house, so you're not going to be able to see to begin with. Tack onto that some smoke. You don't want to be tripping and falling over things in order to get out of that house safely. So you always want to keep your paths to the means of egress clear.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the mentality is a lot of times that it's never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
And that's when we see build up in hallways and things like that, because, oh, that's never going to happen to me. And unfortunately, it does happen.
Yep.
Another, just to piggyback on that, is also if you're out there and you're listening, have a meeting place. Have a safe meeting place for your family. So if there's 2 means of egress and there's a fire going on and you can't get to your children or your significant other, you go out the front, they go out the back. Make sure you have a meeting place that you get together and you know you're safe. So when we arrive, you can say, yep, everybody's out of the building to the chief. Very important. And we can go into fighting the fire versus a search and rescue mentality.
That's a good point, because it makes my life a lot easier when I get to a fire and we have to interview the displaced families, particularly for the Red Cross. And part of my job is to take the report for the fire chiefs, as you know, the district
Right.
chiefs. So when everybody's in one area, it makes it a lot easier for us rather than trying to find everyone.
Right.
And great point. I think that'll be the conclusion of our show, unless you guys have anything else to say.
No, it pretty much, you know, just wish everybody a happy holiday season upcoming, and leave the fireworks to the professionals. We don't want to see anybody get burnt or injured out there during this holiday season.
Just a shout out for safety. Have your carbon monoxide detector, have your smoke detector, have an extinguisher in your house. Those are some basic 101 things that could save your life.
Right, and make sure you test them on a monthly basis. It only takes a second. Push the button, the test button. As soon as you hear the beep, you know the device is going to be there working for you. Smoke detectors are good for 10 years. Carbon monoxide detectors are good for 7 years.
I want to thank Clayton Walker and Jeff Medeiros from the Fire Department for our first show. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Chief.
much. I
Thank
think
you.
Thank you.
it was informative to the public. If anyone wants to send me an email or the show an email regarding any topic, please do so. We'll get that to you at the next show. Thank you very much, and be safe, and have a great day.